Exactly.
So, and here we get to see the full human Zion city, which exists sort of like very underground. They say near the Earth's core because it's the only place that it's like, slightly warm on the planet anymore since they blocked out the sun.
Yeah.
Hoping that the machines could no longer run on solar power, when instead the machines just instead ran on human body power.
We figured it out. Don't worry.
We got it figured out. And it kind of goes through the idea of sort of like these newly formed societal structures by people outside of the Matrix, because we spent most of the Matrix being like the Matrix itself is a construction of society designed to keep people in check.
Yeah.
And here is one where people are, sort of like a group of people come together and they are creating the first structures of what eventually would become sort of, like a collective resistance, I suppose. And I find the aesthetic here sort of interesting, a mix of sort of like sci-fi tech, still again like that cyberpunk aesthetic, but also mixed with like caves and tribal robes and like a more like it's trying to get to an idea of like a primordial human civilization, like the first time.
Exactly.
So again, you'll get a scene where like Lawrence Fishburne is in like a sort of like a tribal vest of some sort, shirtless, and yelling at a bunch of people from on top of a rock, like Lion King, Pride Rock style.
Which, such a great speech.
Yes.
And Lawrence Fishburne, has such power with his presence. The machines! So good.
So combine that with still like the fact that that's taking place inside the Earth's core with tons of like sci-fi machinery all around them. There's even a great line where they talk about sort of like, here are the machines keeping us alive while machines are here on their way to kill us. And, like this really explores the idea of sort of like the original humans creating our first structures, basically, our first civilizations, our first societies, but in the middle of a sort of like sci-fi apocalyptic dystopia.
Right.
So it's very cool imagery, and it is an expansion of the same ideas that the first one had, but we're just seeing it from a a different aesthetic, a different look at it.
And what I like about that too is that sense of community, because at this point, all of these different people have to come together.
Yeah.
Because these
There's literally
sentients,
nothing else they can do.
this is the human race now. You know what I mean? And that scene, and I think you said it in your Letterboxd review, which is like the Wachowskis were basically painting the image of what we're fighting for.
Yes.
With this techno-driven, sweaty rave, basically, that they have, this giant orgy.
Yeah, well, and a big thing about it is that
great.
It's I think when Dave Imbeden...
It's a very human part of what we don't usually see in The Matrix, which is cool. Yeah.
Well, and that's just it, is when Dave... I think it's actually the first time we really see, like, just real human connection outside.
Yeah, because everyone... It's pure... I don't want to say emotion. It's like that physicality. It's just like physical love is essentially what that scene is. It's just everybody together rubbing and sweating. It's
well, and that's just it, is that when Dave Imbeden said that the first film kind of had a lot of like their tech fetishes and a lot of like their like, which is where you get the that's so cool or that looks cool or like, they love the that kind of stuff. This is the first time we see them really fetishize just like human bodies.
Yes.
It's really like they show you a lot of, exposed, not quite genitals, but they show you a lot of exposed skin.
Yeah.
And they show you a lot of sweating people, a lot of people grinding up on each other, a lot of sort of like feet intertwined. And then it also obviously connects with a literal sex scene between Keanu Reeves and
what I love is
Carrie-Anne
that
Moss,
while they're having the
Trinity.
sex, they'll put the camera on like their electric nodes and stuff like that, their inserts. So it adds this
still
element.
Feels kind of off, right?
Yeah, exactly. It adds this element of like, yes, this is love you're seeing, and this is what they're fighting for, but it's still there. It's still present.
That mechanical thing is like still present in their lives. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and then they have this great shot, which they later replicate in the film, of Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss embraced in the cave. Where they're sort of like cocooned and they feel safe and all of this, where like they've just had some rockin' sex, and so is clearly everyone else in Zion. yeah, I think that that's like a really important element to this film because of, you know, that is really what's driving them to resist in the first place, is that like they feel better doing that. And I think that the way that they sort of fetishize it and film it like it's just like the most glorious thing in the world is them being like, this is what life outside the Matrix could be like.
Yeah.
So then when they go back into the Matrix, you understand why, you know, their motivations for what they're doing. And then, this huge. I was surprised when I found out that a lot of people didn't really like this Zion stuff because some of it is, again, it's.
I will say it's a little bit boring at times when they get into some of like the council stuff. It's kind of it reminded me of like when the newer trilogy of Star Wars started to talk about taxes and shit like that, and
right.
you're just like, I get it, but I'm not here for that.
There's a little bit of like bureaucratic stuff that's going on in there. Well, especially with Lawrence Fishburne or Morpheus,
which I will say I did like the way that they used him with that stuff because we view him as like that wise man, and this time he's actually being talked down to. He's being questioned. And we don't see that ever
because we saw him as the leader. Like everyone who's on his ship believes in him as like the new leader, whereas everyone else, a lot of other people in Zion, some of them believe him, some of them don't. But the whole point is that he's kind of seen as more of like a religious. Like maniac, what's the word for that?
Zealot.
Zealot. I think that's the word for it. Yeah. So he's.